think nothing is funny. Get out of there, Negro, and stand with your people so that you understand that God is on our side.
Eliminating black seats from the Senate as we speak right before midterms, and everyone's quiet because there's no watermelons or rainbows involved, even though y'all talk about how we were resting and digesting.
Run by racists and disproportionately full of white men who have a long history of being incredibly racist. It's run by white men and the white women who uphold white male power.
So a white journalist has just goes off on Trump administration and white Americans. Listen, she said a whole lot of things and everything came with facts, evidence. And it's so clear how systematically black Americans have been sidelined, oppressed. Listen, it's just mind-blowing. And what is actually happening now? She is giving us some details, evidence, actually with facts. Listen, I don't want to talk much. Let's go into the video. And I have like people to sharing their opinions about this. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. You don't lose anything by liking. Just give the video a thumbs up. Let's watch.
But on the issue of race, on the treatment of African Americans specifically, even being terrible at what they're doing has still proven to be disastrous for our country. And it is in part the posturing and from the White House and the president. That is stuff that validates and excites the worst bigots in the country, and that is consequential. But it's more than that too. We are now about 16 months into what has been from day one a concerted and intense targeting of black Americans, specifically by this president and by this administration. On his first full day in office, he proclaims war on diversity efforts, not only in government, but in any institution in the country over which he can exert leverage, everything from schools and universities to law firms to private businesses of every stripe. He then immediately started firing some of the highest profile black public officials in the whole U.S. government, seemingly regardless of any other thing about them. I mean, right away, we get the firing of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Charles C.Q. Brown. We get the firing of the Librarian of Congress, Carla Hayden. And then it's Gwyn Wilcox from the National Labor Relations Board. And then it's Robert Primus, the chair of the Surface Transportation Board. And then it's Alvin Brown from the NTSB. And then it's Peggy Carr, the head of the National Center for Education Statistics. And then it's Willie Phillips from FERC, from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And then it's Lisa Cook from the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, and on and on and on. When Trump and his top political donor, Elon Musk, then started just lopping off huge swaths of the federal government to disastrous practical effect, the largest and most egregious cuts targeted federal agencies that employed a disproportionate number of black employees. Reporter Erica Green wrote about this a few months ago for The Times, noting that nothing had moved backwards in the federal government for black Americans this quickly or this far in over 100 years. Since Woodrow Wilson came in 1912 and resegregated the federal workforce. Quote, black employees were fired or demoted to lower level jobs, relegated to separate and inferior lunchrooms and other facilities, and accused of making white women feel unsafe. Those who remained were humiliated. A black worker in the Postal Service was surrounded by screens so white workers would not have to look at him. Another employee had a cage built around him to separate him from his white counterparts. A clerk in the Treasury Secretary's office was assigned to rewrite all correspondence to address black employees by their first names. The way Trump addressed the Librarian of Congress, Carla Hayden, by her first name when he crowed publicly about firing her for no reason. In the year of our Lord 2025 and now 2026, this president and this administration is not just inheriting that history from the Wilson administration, it's furthering it in its own ways. Since 1965, there has been an executive order in effect. It was signed by Lyndon Johnson, 1965. Since 1965, all federal contractors have been banned by executive order from discriminating on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or national origin. Donald Trump rescinded that 1965 rule on his first full day in office. Less than a month later, Trump announced another rule change. They rescinded Clause 52.222-21 of the Federal Acquisition Regulation, which doesn't sound like much, but I'll tell you what the title of that is. It's Prohibition of Segregated Facilities. That's what Trump rescinded less than 1 month into being back in the White House. That section reads, quote, the contractor agrees that it does not and will not maintain or provide for its employees any segregated facilities at any of its establishments, and that it does not and will not permit its employees to perform their services at any location under its control where segregated facilities are maintained. That anti-segregation clause has been in government contracts for decades. Donald Trump overtly reached out to rescind it, which means, bluntly, that the federal government no longer explicitly prohibits contractors from having segregated restaurants, waiting rooms, and drinking fountains. Make America great again, right? Recently fired and sidelined employees in the Department of Housing and Urban Development have started sounding the alarm that the Trump administration is no longer, just bluntly no longer enforcing a federal law known as the Fair Housing Act. Fair Housing Act, another pillar of the civil rights movements and its achievements. The Fair Housing Act dates to 1968. It says you can't refuse to rent to someone or refuse to sell a house to someone on account of their race or their color or religion or national origin or any other factor against which we're supposed to be protected from discrimination. According to current and former employees of the Department of Housing and Urban Development under Donald Trump, they have dropped enforcement of the Federal Housing Act. In Trump's first year back in office, black unemployment spiked in this country from 6.2% all the way up to 7.5%, making it the highest of all racial groups. Under Joe Biden, black unemployment had been at a record low of 4.8%, spiking now under Donald Trump. The Trump administration, generally speaking, is bad at its work. It is bad at what it sets its mind to in all sorts of ways. But black Americans, African Americans, have been targeted by this administration in a concerted way that has nevertheless been devastating, even though the Trump administration isn't good at anything they set their mind to. And that was all before the conservative majority on the U.S. Supreme Court, including all of Trump's appointees, voted to effectively end the Voting Rights Act a few days ago. As soon as the court said they would take up that case, people started mapping the worst case scenario for what Trump and the Republicans would do, particularly in the South, if the court gutted the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the crowning achievement of the civil rights movement. And the before and after looks like the snapback after the end of Reconstruction, after the Civil War. I mean, look at the state of Louisiana there. A third of the population of Louisiana is black. Louisiana's Republican governor canceled congressional elections that are already underway in that state to rush through new maps that will presumably make sure that even though 1/3 of the population of that state is black, there will be no black representation in Congress for Louisiana at all. South Carolina, 1/4 of the population is black. They have one majority-minority district represented by an African-American Democrat, Jim Clyburn. They are going to try to get rid of that one black district so that South Carolina is all white, all Republican in representation, while 1/4 of the people who live in that state are black. In Tennessee, 1 in 6 residents is black. Republicans now want to make sure all 9 congressional seats in Tennessee are white. All 9 of them. They want it to be 9-0, white and Republican, when 1 in 6 people in that state is black. In her dissent from the majority ruling, Justice Elena Kagan said it will likely cause the largest reduction to minority representation since the end of Reconstruction. She probably didn't need to use the word likely there. The war on black Americans that is being waged by this president and this Republican Party is one of the only things they have put their mind to in this past year that they've actually done pretty well at. A comprehensive attack on black public officials and black public power. A comprehensive attack on black public officials in the federal government, black employees in the federal government, black representatives in Congress, and now all around the country, where everywhere Republicans are in charge, they are scrambling to make sure that black public officials can no longer hold office. We're going to talk tonight about the pushback against that and the strategies to make them pay for it, both in Louisiana, which is ground zero here, and around the country. We're going to talk tonight about some surprising pushback from churches and the clergy. We're going to talk tonight about a blistering takedown of Trump and the administration in federal court in Washington in a most unexpected case. But big picture here, we are in the middle of something really radical in this country. Not just to get rid of our constitutional republic, to replace our form of government with something else, but to get rid of the multiracial democracy that our Constitution is supposed to protect. It is a war on Black America. The fight to save it is looking like it's going to be the fight of all of our lives.
Funny how my black brothers and sisters are in Montgomery, Alabama, taken to the streets, marching in Alabama as our great-grandparents did in the name of Black Votes Matter. And I haven't seen a single news outlet or article talking about what my people are out there standing for and currently doing. Hundreds of buses of black people at that took to Montgomery, Alabama at 12 o'clock this afternoon, putting feet on pavement to protest the redistricting that is eliminating black seats from the Senate as we speak right before midterms, and everyone's quiet because there's no watermelons or rainbows involved. Even though y'all talk about how we were resting and digesting, now's the time to get the fuck up, and my people are doing it, and everyone's silent as a fucking mouse.
We gather together that you'll be in the midst. More than 2 or 3 here, Lord. You said with 2 as a touching, that you would give us whatever we ask for is more than 2 touching here, Lord. Yes, Lord.
And this isn't a little protest. Thousands are expected to rally and march today in Selma, Montgomery. And guess what? There's nothing being said about it, but this is to defend black political representation. We're witnessing people in the House of Tennessee, black Democrats, who were walked out of their positions and told they can no longer participate in the committee because they stood up for our rights, and our people are out there fighting, and no one's saying anything. So while my people are being dragged out of their rightful places in the government, you're sitting on your couch saying we're lazy. Where the fuck are our watermelons and rainbows?
Non-black people, and I'm looking at you, fellow Latinos, we need to give a fuck about what's happening in the South right now. We need to give a fuck about what's happening to black people right now and every day in this country, because they are continuously disenfranchised. And what's happening right now with the gutting of the Voting Rights Act, what's happening in the South right now, as we basically see a Jim Crow 2.0, is absolutely appalling, and we need to care. We need to care for many reasons, because this is something that could impact us all. And we also need to show appreciation for what black people have done for everyone in this country. But what I really want to go ahead and hone in on here is that we all need to care collectively, because when one oppressed group suffers, we all suffer, and we have to recognize that this is all very much interconnected. It is also very much centered on white supremacy, the patriarchy, and the continual oppression of people of color and other folks of marginalized identities. This is all very intentional. And if you think back to when there was integration proposed and then implemented in this country, how people fought back and found other ways to still disenfranchise black people in this country. This is just another iteration of that. And we have to care, because they come for one group and then they come for another group. And we can't just be like, oh, well, that's not my issue, that's not my community. We're all impacted by this. And we're also all, for the most part, being oppressed by these same groups, the same groups of people in power. And we have to recognize that this is something that needs to unify us, and that we need to show up. We need to show up and vote. We need to make our voices known. We need to show unification. We need to show that we actually can support each other, because there is purposeful rhetoric. There's purposeful narrative and propaganda that has people believing that black and brown folks don't support each other, when in reality, we are so much stronger together. And there is a lot that is done to pit us against each other, very much on purpose to keep us separated. But when we come together, we're that much stronger. And so this is my calling in to everyone that's non-Black, because Black people have done so much for us already, to please show your support, use your voice, vote, talk, get involved, show up to those committee meetings, do what you need to do, because this shit is real. It's real life, and it's happening right in front of our eyes.
This is a map of the Confederacy. This is a map of a Jim Crow South provided by Florida Atlantic University. And this is a map of the possible redistricting of the U.S. South. Notice how they're almost exactly the same.
This video is when they tried to silence and embarrass Justin Pearson for speaking up, only for him to turn around and deliver one of the coldest speeches Tennessee politics has ever heard.
You're wrong. You're in the well today because you broke rules of decorum. Wouldn't you agree?
Representative Pearson.
I believe I'm in the well today because you have put forward a resolution that says that it's more important to expel voices of dissent than do the work of justice, which is fighting to end gun violence in the state of Tennessee. I believe that I'm in the well today because I, with the courage of ancestors and family and loved ones and community, stood up and spoke up for folks like my classmate Larry Thorne, who can speak no more because of the proliferation of guns in Tennessee. I believe that I'm in the well today because you have decided that it is not right to have debate. It is not right to listen to the voices of the minority. I believe I'm in the well today because on the day that we wanted to honor the thousands of people who protested, we were denied that opportunity. I believe that I'm here because you feel in your heart that it is right to persecute someone who has committed no crime, who has only broken what you call the House decorum rule, which according to Section 19 of the House Permanent Rules of Order say that at worst the thing that should happen is censure. But instead, you have brought forward a terrible resolution to deprive and disenfranchise thousands of people in Shelby County of a representative who will and can speak and advocate for them. And I believe, Representative Farmer, that that is wrong.
I guess that whole Will situation was supposed to humble him, but instead it shows how uncomfortable people get when they hear a young Black man speak with intelligence, passion, and historical truth.
And one of the most brain-breaking things about this ruling is it's literally taking power from Black people in the South, and it was voted for by a Black guy from the South. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is Black. He might not know it, but he is Black. How could you, of all people, vote for this, Clarence? You were like an uncle to all of us. Uncle Clarence Thomas. Uncle Thomas for short. Uncle Tom for short. But look, we don't have to pretend here. At the end of the day, we all know that this decision was not about moving on from race. This is the Supreme Court majority handing a win to Republicans. I know that, you know that, and the Republicans definitely know that because their leader said it out loud.
Mr. President, I want to go back to the Supreme Court ruling on the Voting Rights Act. I know you said you haven't seen it.
When did it come out? Just now?
No, it came out this morning, but basically very much narrows the Voting Rights Act.
Was it considered a win for who?
A win for Republicans.
I love it.
You could always count on Trump to get right to the point. Like, it's a win for Republicans. Did you guys hear that? I know this guy did.
On record, our current administration is attempting to reinstate Jim Crow America. They're dismantling the things that were done to dismantle Jim Crow America, which means they're trying to rebuild Jim Crow America. Our administration is racist, run by racists, and disproportionately full of white men who have a long history of being incredibly racist. It's run by white men and the white women who uphold white male power, which of course, as we know, are the two most racist demographics on the planet, is the men who want to be patriarchal powers and the women who would rather support the patriarchal powers than have to fight for equality and bring everybody else with them. White people, we're the problem unless we're willing to help the solution. We can't be a bystander. There are no bystanders. That's what motivates this work I'm doing. There are no bystanders, so you're either part of the problem or part of the solution. You can't just sit there and dislike racism, you have to deconstruct it. You have to combat it. You have to bring white people and say, hey guys, we're the problem.
It's only been 1 week since the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act, and southern states have already undone decades of progress. Florida immediately jammed through new maps, even though they passed a constitutional amendment in 2010 against gerrymandering. Louisiana suspended their primary to push for new maps, even though 42,000 votes have already been cast. Tennessee Republicans just voted to break up Memphis and get rid of the only majority black district in the state. Alabama Republicans passed a measure to delay their primary if courts allow them to redraw maps. South Carolina Republicans are extending their legislative session to, you guessed it, gerrymander their maps. That's all in 1 week without Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. 1 fucking week. A single week, and black Americans across the South are about to lose equal representation. It's almost like the entire civil rights movement was aimed at passing the Voting Rights Act for a reason.
It wasn't Democrats or Republicans who passed the Voting Rights Act. Let's just be very clear about that. It was black people. It was black mothers, black sons, black preachers, black children who sacrificed everything. They never got tired. They were the ones who believed the best in this country despite seeing the worst. Many are still alive today, by the way, and they are seeing the worst. That is who is telling us what's happening in this moment. I knew John Lewis. Reverend Lawson was a mentor of mine. 20 of us were down with people who marched in Selma, marched in Montgomery just last year. The history and the record of this is clear.
Been praying for me all week. You've been nervous all week, but I ain't afraid of the spooks that sat at the door. These runaway slaves hiding in the White House gonna throw my picture up thinking that I'm gonna be afraid. If you got real courage, don't show my picture. Show the picture of the one that fired the black Joint Chief of Staffs from the military. If you gonna show a picture of the CEO of Target, Walmart, McDonald's, and Amazon that does not recognize black dollars or black business. If you gonna put up a picture of the state legislators in Florida that are banning black books. If you gonna put up the picture of the one who is stealing classified information from the IRS and Social Security. If you gonna put up a picture of those that don't want your mama to pay $35 for insulin and your child to pay $35 for inhaler. If you gonna put up a picture of those that are jailing children and separating families. I ain't ever scared. In case you forgot, I'm from the west side of Baltimore. If you got a problem, pull up on me. Stokely Carmichael said, our fathers had to run, but my generation is out of breath. We ain't running no more. Yea, though I walk. And after being on the run for 26 years from Saul and Philistines, David said, my running days are over. We don't have to run anymore. You only run when you're scared. But you walk when you got confidence. That greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. Would you look at your neighbor and tell him, I ain't running nowhere. Be like a tree, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding, knowing that your labor is not in vain. I'm not gonna run when nobody is chasing me, but I'm gonna walk like a smooth operator. I gotta walk because I understand that no weapon formed against me shall be able to prosper. All these other churches might not say nothing, but at 6400 Woodrow, we right outside of Decatur where it's greater. You got to understand that there is more for us than there are against us. Look at your neighbor and say, as long as we stick together, we ain't gotta run. Harriet Tubman said, whenever I tried to make our people be free, there were a few Negroes that tried to go backwards and tried to risk our freedom. I feel bad for them coons in the White House who are in there tap dancing for massa, wearing bow ties, shinning and grinding, laughing like nothing is funny. Get out of there, Negro, and stand with your people so that you understand that God is on our side.
Listen, this is very clear. We are back to the Jim Crow era, because you cannot tell me whatever this particular administration, this Trump administration is doing is not the same as or even worse than what's happened in the Jim Crow era. Because listen, how can you say you are taking someone's rights, and not just someone but a group of people, their rights, like intentionally doing this to them? Like, bro, how? Listen, it is sad to see this, it is sad to hear this, but you know, I have one solution that I think could be applied so that all these things could be withdrawn. But I don't know if these people are ready to do this. What is happening to Black Americans right now? For me, I think the only solution right now is for all African countries, especially the Black African countries, to say we don't want this to happen to Black Americans. If this is what you are going to do to Black Americans, then we are also going to block you, the US, from everything that you gain from Africa. I'm telling you, if the African leaders are serious about this and they know about what is going on in America right now, I think they should take a decision, and that could easily help for them to withdraw. Because if not, we are going to see what exactly happened in the Jim Crow era. Same thing is going to happen. Same thing is going. It has even started for me. That's like what I would say. Just supporting African leaders should just come together and support Black Americans on this. This is my solution, honestly, because America gets a lot from Africa. So imagine African leaders are saying we are all united. We are not going to allow this to happen. If you are also doing this to our people, I'm telling you, that would be like one of the biggest. This is something that it should be done. I know that so many African leaders are puppets of the West and all that. So you will have one or two people basically going against this. But listen, I think this is the solution. Imagine if we are getting about 30 African countries coming together to say this. That is huge. And that is going to really do something. You see this voting, whatever that happened at the UN, a typical example. We can do same. Let's do this to support, to help. Honestly, thank you so much for watching.